everybody, to today's webinar hosted by Travefy Academy with 4 amazing panelists who I'm going to introduce in just a minute or so. But we're really excited for all of you to join us here on Facebook Live and for the panelists as well for taking time out of your day to chat with us. We're so thankful, and we're wrapping up this really crazy year. And so, and I'll get in that in a second, but for real quick, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Stephanie Grice, and the Senior Client Champion and Education Coordinator here at Travefy. But what we wanted to do with this webinar is we wanted to host one final webinar of 2020 to have a conversation just to reflect on the challenges the industry and travel advisors have had to overcome this year, but also start gearing up for 2021 and the anticipation for travel's big comeback, which we are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel and so excited for. So we're going to chat through different questions ranging from lessons learned in 2020 and then also what businesses are planning for 2021. So hopefully there's lots of good takeaways, but also, some community bonding here of, we're all going through this and chatting about everything we're learning. So we're really excited. And if this is your first Travefy Academy webinar, welcome and thank you for joining us. But what Travefy Academy is a free educational resource to further Travefy's mission to power the success of travel professionals. So you can always find free webinar replays, articles, helpful content, and upcoming webinars next year at academy.travefy.com. And also be sure to like us on this Facebook page to get up-to-date information if you haven't done that already. Now, a couple things I want to mention before we dive in here is that, first of all, this webinar is being recorded, but this time we're doing things a little different. So we're going to be converting this recording into a podcast episode for the Lounge by Travefy Academy. So that is something that came out of 2020, really good silver lining there, that we created a podcast. And so we're going to convert this into a podcast, but we'll also put the video on YouTube. So if you prefer to watch it virtual and video, you can do that. If you want to listen while you're driving, you can do that too. So go to academy.travefy.com and you can subscribe to the podcast on pretty much any of your favorite platform. We're on all the main ones, which is awesome. And then also, since we are hosting this on Facebook Live, you can go ahead and use that comment section to ask questions. And we're really hoping that we have time at the end to get to those questions. There is a chance we won't because we do have so much to talk about, but definitely put in your comments. Feel free to write anything you want in there. But now, the moment we've been waiting for, I want to introduce our panel today. So first up, we Ian Elliott, who is VP Sales and Marketing for TravelOnly, but also owner of My Way Holiday. And then we have Jamie Biesiada, who is a senior editor of Travel Weekly. And then we have Margie Jordan, agency owner of Jordan Executive Travel Service. And we also have Jenn Novotny, founder and co-owner of Upon a Star Travel and Concierge. So welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
We're excited. This will be fun. And I want to mention too, to our panelists here today. So I'm going to point out, for some questions, but feel free, chime in whenever you want to add anything to it. So with all of that, let's dive in here because I know we have so much to go over. This year's insane. Everybody knows. So I'm just going to dive into our first question here. But what I want to start off first is I want to talk about this year and highlight areas of strength and areas that needed better support. So Margie, I'm actually going to start with you here. So for you, what did 2020 highlight in terms of needs for your business?
Wow. So 2020 was the year to understand all the legal ramifications of terms and conditions, changing terms and conditions, force majeure policies, act of God, all of that. This was the year for it. If it could have happened in 2020, it happened in 2020. So there was a lot of, even from the agents that I work with CCRA, there's a lot of differences in how agents came to understand terms and conditions and what those actually mean. In the course of this pandemic and things being canceled and some things being rescheduled, and we ran up against this whole situation of getting refunds, and can we get refunds, and under what conditions can we get them? What I found was that this whole idea of reading terms and conditions, while there were some agents that did, there were plenty others that never did and just trusted that this was all good. 2020 proved that quite wrong. It was not all good. And understanding that terms and conditions actually changed midstream. It said one thing, but now it's this. So it made it a difficult year in terms of us trying to get refunds for clients. How do you do that when you're chasing terms and conditions that may be changing on a weekly basis, or cancellation policies, or what you can be refunded on? Now, add to that travel insurance and what it's going to pay and what it's not going to pay. And it became the most chaotic legal year, full of legal ramifications. I can tell you that the phone calls that I got from some of our members at CCRA, some of them were frightening. The delays they had in getting not commissions, but getting refunds was insane, and how clients viewed it. So if the agent themselves accepted the money and then later paid the supplier, that client doesn't care that the supplier says this is going to be 8-10 weeks before you see the money. The response was, I paid you. Where's my money? One agent called me in the middle of the night. Probably the scariest, craziest story I heard. One agent called me in the middle of the night because her client was getting ready to go to the police station and file a theft report because he wasn't getting his money back fast enough. And she wanted to know what she could do. So we've seen the gamut of things happen in 2020 in terms of the legal side. If there was ever a highlight for me, that was truly it.
Yeah, that is crazy. And looking to 2021, is there anything in place or any new processes that you're going to put in place, or CCRA has talked about, to help avoid that? I know it's not really unavoidable, but kind of preparing for it.
So there's some things you can do. First off, I think that the best thing to do is get to know the suppliers you're working with and make sure you have preferreds. From my perspective, there's no reason you should be doing business with 20 suppliers. That's entirely too many. Get to know the ones that you really want to work with and have this conversation with them now. What are their policies? What are their terms and conditions? And get to know them now. Talk to other agents about how they performed during the pandemic. Did you get refunds back or not? Let's just throw it all out on the table and ask those questions now. We created a scenario on how you should interview a supplier and what questions you should ask. Things like whether this is a publicly traded company or is it privately owned? How many times have you had to invoke this force majeure policy, and under what circumstances? I developed a whole list of about 50 questions. Of course, you don't want to sit them down and ask them all 50. But pull out the ones that are most relevant for you and the type of business that you have. And let's get to know these suppliers a little better. And then I would take it a step further and pull those terms and conditions and sit with your attorney and ask all the questions in the world you want to ask. One of the things we recommend asking is, when your terms and conditions do change, how do you notify me as the travel agent? How do you tell me that? Because if they've changed, I don't know it. So that's one of the questions we suggest asking suppliers now in this coming year, and the ones you've chosen to do business with. You better get to know them really good. So in case there is another pandemic, and I pray there isn't, or any other situation that kind of halts our industry or forces mass refunds, you need to know, and there will be no surprises for you next time.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And I know we'll talk about dive a little deeper into suppliers in a little bit as well too, because that's a huge part of it. But I also want to check on, so we have a lot of Canadian agents and a lot of users on Travefy as well. Yeah, so Ian, I want to go to you next. So being a home-based agency, you were able to take advantage of working from home and staying connected virtually. But what was this like for the 650 plus travel-only agents across Canada?
Yeah, I mean, as dark and as scary as the last 9 months have been, we definitely have been introspective that we are very fortunate that all of our agents were used to working from home. So they're all used to being in kind of isolation, dealing with the work from home challenges that all of us have been dealing with for the last 9 months. They're used to managing multiple things between the household and working in their home office. But we'd already built some infrastructure around collaboration, working virtually, peer-to-peer collaboration networks, so that our advisors, even though they're at home by themselves, they always had, 649 other advisors that were around them they could ask questions with, aside from, of course, their executive team. So that helped us get through a lot of the situations that some of the storefronts might have had to figure out as they went along. So that was definitely an advantage for us. And, being a large home-based agency, we were fortunate to have specialists in different areas. So we had some good product diversification. So I think as most of us were going through the initial parts of this pandemic, we weren't sure what was going to return first. Was it going to be, all-inclusive, sun-based vacations? Was it going to be Europe? Was it going to be cruise? Was it going to be contemporary? Was it going to be river? I think we were all speculating, and I think probably all of us got it wrong. And we probably still don't know 100% where we're going to be. But I think having agents that were more diverse in their product knowledge, and definitely for us as an agency, that's helped spread out a little bit of the risk. So, again, as scary and as hard as these 9 months have been, I think we are fortunate, and we look that our strength has been that we have always been a home-based agency, and we've learned how to manage that. And there's still a lot of things we can do to improve, though.
Yeah, definitely. And that's it's really crazy. It's like you've already been doing part of this, home base, but it's still, everything is so changed. But that's a good point too, of having, a community where you can ask all these different questions, and some people might have knowledge differently. So that's really nice and helpful to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And Jamie, I want to go to you next. So again, so excited to have you from Travel Weekly. This is really great. Usually, it's just great to get the media side of everything, and you talk to so many people too. But I know that you had mentioned, we were emailing back and forth earlier about with commissions. And I know, Margie, you were talking about this as well. So 2020 highly impacted travel advisors' commissions since travel came to an absolute halt. What have you seen suppliers do to help navigate this issue?
Yeah, so when things kind of ground to a halt in March, advisors were stuck scrambling. Cancellations, rebookings, and sometimes repeating that process 2-3 times as the whole year folded out. And I think that really highlighted a fundamental issue with the system that was we didn't really see in previous years, because commissions are traditionally paid at or shortly after the time of travel. And, maybe that adversely impacts advisors who are just starting out. But once you have steady business coming in, you've got steady commissions coming in. So the system worked pretty well until it didn't. But, right now, I think we are starting to see some suppliers respond to that by kind of putting in place these early pay commission initiatives. And, a lot of them are smaller suppliers, DMCs, on the ground, in-country contacts. We did see notably Globus did this summer. And I think that could really help fix this issue that was highlighted by the pandemic. But of course, the biggest question is, are these initiatives, these early pay initiatives, going to stay beyond when we're in like a post-pandemic, once travel volumes return? Because if they do, I think that could mean some major changes for the agency business. We're talking agencies could have commissions in their pockets at the time of booking or at the time of final payment. So I think that would be a really good thing. And if it sticks around, it'll be sea change for agencies.
Yeah, that it is. And it'll be interesting to see, as travel does start to pick up, what suppliers do and keep in place, or, things in place for this, because this is going to be something that travel, always going to be on the top of mind, especially going into 21, 22, 23. So yeah, no, those are all such great points that all of you've made. But now for the second question, I wanted to go back to you actually, Jamie, and just going right back to you here. I want to know what else. So it's so interesting to see, because you talk to suppliers and agents and so many different people, and it's really interesting to hear, what was the biggest surprise that you saw in the industry this year?
This is kind of a happy one. When this all started to happen, I think everyone said, oh God, this is going to be a huge hit for agencies. We're going to see agencies closing left and right, mass closures. I'm happy to say that from all of the folks that I've spoken to, that's not really happening. Agencies are definitely closing, retirements are happening, but we're seeing some more creative solutions happen too, where maybe an agency that was traditionally a brick and mortar, they're opting to move to affiliating under a host agency. Not to say that all brick and mortars are going to do that. I certainly don't think that's the case, but we're seeing acquisitions and mergers in the agency space and creative solutions like that. So I would say that's been the biggest and happiest surprise for me, is that we haven't seen that mass closure. I want to kind of caveat that with the fact that agencies have not seen any real federal aid for months, and everything that happens in the beginning with the CARES Act has dried up essentially. And I think that a lack of federal support, depending on how quickly travel does rebound, that could kind of change that answer in the coming months. But I really hope it doesn't, and I really hope that owners and managers keep turning to these more creative solutions to keep their agencies open and their agents employed when possible.
Yeah, and that's awesome. That is such a good point to make, that we're surviving, everyone's surviving and gonna thriving. Many are already really thriving too. But Jenn, I wanted to go to you next, because we got to chat with you a couple months ago on another webinar panel. And we talked about actually the surprises and changes that your company has had to make this year. So what's the biggest surprise that you've seen in the past 6 months or so?
Probably in the past 6 months, aside from all of life, which I feel like every day just holds new surprises, for better or for worse. No, I think that the couple of things would be how much, and I'm not going to say this well, people are booking more closely than they used to. It used to be that people would give us 6-9 months lead time. Hey, I want to do this big vacation here. We are seeing more and more. I want to go somewhere next weekend. I want to go somewhere in 2 weeks. And I think that has a lot to do with the shifting, I don't want to say culture, but the shifting circumstances that we're dealing with. Hey, we know that this is open right now. We know we can get there right now. Now seems to be a good time. We're going to take advantage while we can, in case something gets worse or something gets locked down. So that was definitely a really big surprise for us. Also, I think another big surprise was just that what a strong October, at least in my area, we saw in terms of booking. It actually ended up being a record-breaking October, which was completely shocking to me. I was not expecting that. Okay, I'll take it. Yeah, I'll take it. A lot of stuff is rescheduling, and I think, hopefully with some of the new news on the horizon, we will continue to see that occur. But I think that's the biggest thing, and just how, in what order things are bouncing back. That's also surprising, because in my head I'm like, oh, this will be open soon. Hawaii, domestic location, that will certainly be open before anything else. I was wrong.
Nope.
I was wrong.
And what are the types of clients or travel that you are seeing bounce back the most?
For me, we so families with older children, and then young couples is what I personally am seeing in my agency, is seeing a lot of. People just, we're good. We're working from home anyway. So even if we have to quarantine, whatever, we're already home-based school, home-based work. So we're going to go and do it. That's the demographic we are personally seeing.
Yeah, no, that does make sense, actually. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And congrats on the big month. I'm sure you're like, well, okay, then this works.
Yeah, ran my numbers last week and I went, see that coming. Cool.
Yeah, no, that is so awesome. And speaking of travel advisors, Ian, I know that you mentioned in our email how travel advisors are the best problem solvers. Completely agree. As you can see, again, thriving here, which many people discovered in 22 when travel was up in the air. We also realized that travel advisors were great to have because they could help you cancel, rebook, you name it, all those things. So what are the surprises that you saw in your own business, but also with advisors that you work with?
Yeah, I think, honestly, it was probably one of the most pleasant surprises. I'm actually not from the travel world initially. I come from corporate consulting. And I have to tell you that in my experience in the last 9 months, travel advisors are some of the best problem solvers in the business world. I mean, people need to make decisions quickly, figure out solutions. And I had seen so many situations when if I was advocating for a client, I would not have been as tenacious as some of our advisors. They were going for refunds whatever it was, they were going to get those credits to extend. They were going to make sure their clients got back on a different flight. Whatever needed to happen, they would come back to me and say, yep, I solved that problem. I'm like, how did you do that? But I think it just speaks to the resiliency of this industry. If you are a travel advisor now, and as Jenn was saying, and as Jamie was saying as well, if you can just survive to the next little bit and get through this next little bit, things are going to get better, and people are going to remember you for the problem solver, the solution maker, the advocate for them. And people are going to want to go to those experts before they make the decision to travel again, because there is so much uncertainty out there. People want to travel. We know that. But we also know that over 60% of people that say they want to travel are still not willing to do that unless there's a vaccine or unless they have better clarity on what's happening around the borders. So this is the time. And, as you and I were mentioning in our email, I was just so pleasantly surprised at how well our advisors, and I'm sure everyone's advisors that's on this call, dealt with the pandemic. And it's just a testament to how amazing this industry really is.
Yes. Absolutely. So resilient. And which actually brings me into question 3, because it's just all about how resilient this industry is. And it's really incredible to see. I wish we didn't have to see it this year, but it still is. It shows though how, and how important it is to have travel advisors as well. But Jenn, I want to go back to you because I want to talk a little bit more about suppliers again, because that's a really big topic for everyone too. And I know, Jenn, your agency focuses a lot on Disney, and luckily Disney was able to reopen with safety measures in place, some of the parks. But you also work with cruises and other suppliers. So what did you learn about suppliers this year, and what suppliers were you personally most impressed with?
Yeah. So, I mean, as you mentioned, we do a lot of Disney and all of their brands. And so they were, in my opinion, very great to work with throughout this entire process, because, we did have some protected commissions. They were in as much as they could communicate things quickly, they were trying to get information out to us. Of course, it was sometimes piecemeal, but I feel like everybody had to be piecemeal this year because the situation was so fluid and changing. But I think the other thing we noticed is just in terms of all of our other suppliers, because we do have cruise business and we have quite a bit of all-inclusive business, is what suppliers were doing and how good they were to work with. And I think all the advisors on this panel can probably agree there were certain suppliers in that space that were terrible to work with, that it might be 2 days before a client was traveling, we had no communication from them. You could try to call them and the line was shut off. I mean, that you couldn't get a hold of a BDM, even someone who you have good rapport with. And because we do have preferred suppliers, we don't just book with anybody. And I think it was very telling which suppliers did that, who was willing to give the refunds, how much they were being willing to work with you on maybe extending credits, how quickly those refunds were happening. Sometimes it was saying, oh, it's going to be 90 days, but then suddenly it's 120 days and clients still haven't seen refunds and we're getting nasty phone calls. There was more than one day where we were on hold for 2 hours, calling, sending panicked emails. Listen, this client's going to start coming after me. You need to get this pushed through. We learned which BDMs were great with that. And then I think the other thing, someone mentioned it earlier, is we learned to watch those terms and conditions super closely, especially with the cruise line and the future cruise credits. So I think that was the thing that we learned, is be very careful who you work with and make sure you have that good relationship, because with our preferred suppliers that we have close relationships with, we were able to get those answers fairly quickly in most cases. And even if we didn't get them as fast as we wanted, we knew that they were working hard on our behalf. And it was just a situation of, okay, we've got to wait and see how this, unfolds. I hope that fully answers the question. But that's definitely where that's what we learned. There were some people that we actually took off our list. Our list.
Oh yeah. They showed the true colors. Yeah.
They showed the colors, and we will not promote or work with those suppliers anymore. And we have since switched. So.
Yeah, well, and that's an important lesson too, because Margie, you were mentioning that earlier about how it's an interview process for these suppliers, and then take it a step further, go to your lawyer, ask those questions, and set yourself. So in 2021, that is a huge lesson, to be actionable with going in 2021.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, and going back too, because again, I know that I feel like TravelOnly is very split with Canada and the US. So I wanna chat about Canadian suppliers and see, Ian, what kinds of challenges did you face? Were there any, and then also with quarantines, because quarantines are different in Canada, like we were
Yeah.
mentioning, than here in the US. And of course, that every country has their, regulations.
Yeah, I think just to go back to what Jenn was saying too. For the most part, our BDMs were amazing. They were there with us from the very beginning, but we definitely realized that we needed to bone up on terms and conditions better. We should have better understood force majeure and how they were going to handle whether it was refunds or future travel credits. On the insurance side, I know we've all been dealing on the insurance side as well, refunds versus future travel credits and whether that's an insurable loss. So that's been a big thing for us here in Canada. But for us in Canada, the challenge for us has been a truly return to travel. And we were just talking before we went live about the challenges that we had. For most of us in Canada, we were all anticipating that come September, October, November, December, eventually our quarantine would have been lifted. And so, we were in sync with our supplier partners in starting the marketing process and starting to get that messaging out there. But in retrospect, because nothing has changed, and in fact, in Canada right now, aside from if you're flying into Calgary, you cannot come back and not have a 2-week quarantine. It has really stopped our ability to sell travel, at least in the short term. And so we are booking farther out into 2021. And so what's happened is we here at TravelOnly and with our supplier partners, we were doing a lot of marketing, a lot of return to travel type of stuff and booking clients, but then we were booking, canceling, refunding, booking, canceling, refunding. And so our clients were going on this roller coaster. Our supplier partners were going on this roller coaster. We were going on this roller coaster, and everyone spent resources by doing all of this work. And still, most of our clients have not yet traveled. And so it's made it difficult for us to then work with our supplier partners and say what's going to work from a marketing perspective, which is where I strongly focus for a lot of our advisors, helping them promote. How are we going to structure our marketing for the end of 2020? We're already there, but into 2021. And again, as we mentioned, who are we going to focus on? Is it going to be land? Is it going to be cruise? It's probably not going to be cruise. So I'll say that now. It's probably going to be land, but in what destinations, and how are we going to do that? So I think from a supplier perspective, our partnerships were strong. We've learned a lot about, again, Margie, I need to take you with me on some supplier negotiations, because those are some great questions that you were suggesting, because we need to better understand our contracts. And I think we never anticipated, of course, that we'd be in this situation. But now we have to be better at looking at those contracts, not only for us, but for our clients, and translating that into some type of travel waiver to our clients so they better understand the terms and conditions and service fees and all those things as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All such good points. And man, the one thing everyone's taking away from this is supplier contracts and understanding everything. So yes, it's a big topic. But another thing I want to talk about, this is a word, there's been words that we hear all the time this year. Unprecedented is one of them. I think, Jenn, I think it was on your webinar, we were talking about that. We were like, this word is getting annoying because we hear it all the time, or uncertain,
Yes.
but yeah, all the time. But, another word that we hear a lot is pivots. Pivoting, so many pivots this year, which is really, it's fun to hear though, because it's really creative and seeing what other people are doing. So I want to focus on the pivots that were made and that were really popular. So Jamie, I'm going to start with you. So coming from the media side of the travel industry, were there any pivots that Travel Weekly had to implement this year? And what do you plan for 2021 to look like?
Yeah, I mean, when all of this happened in March, basically all of our coverage that was like pre-planned and we were working on just became completely irrelevant almost overnight. We had to cancel stories. Like I was working on a big story on innovative recruitment strategies at travel agencies. That would not have been a great look to right. That story at that time. But, all of our coverage really shifted to being COVID related. And I mean, I cover retail travel sales, and I have a couple other subspecialties in like theme parks and stuff. And I mean, everything just became about how travel agencies, travel advisors are making it through, the kind of aid packages available to them, that kind of stuff. So basically everything shifted. And, it's funny, we all kind of thought we were going to be sitting around twiddling our thumbs, because if nobody's traveling, what are we going to be writing about? out, but we've been busier than ever. That was a very, very uninformed thought early on. So we remain very busy, and, you know, like everybody else, doing more with less. We have had some, you know, staff reductions, but I'm really hoping that 2021 becomes more covering the return of travel instead of just the, you know, the coming apart of everything. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to focus on more and more positive stories. And I think we're already starting to see that to some degree too.
Yeah, I was going to say, are you already seeing that with, you know, vaccines? And today, you know, literally UK giving out their first vaccine, and we're seeing it happen now, which is really exciting.
I'm actually, I've been speaking with some agencies, like, especially in the aftermath of when we first got the really good vaccine news. And I said, you know, are you hearing from clients? And for some, the phones were ringing already, but others said within hours of some of the vaccine news coming out, they were getting calls and inquiries and interest. So that's really positive.
Yeah, it is awesome. Again, the light at the end of the tunnel is flashing on. So exciting. But Margie, I also wanted to go to you next, because in our emails, you had mentioned about shifting your focus to become more of a resource. And I think a lot of travel advisors have been doing that. So can you share what you have done and anything new that you've began to focus in to become a top resource for travel or for travelers?
So right when we started going into lockdown, or even prior to that, when there were questions about COVID-19 and how it was affecting travel, I got calls from our local news channel to come and do news stories and talk about how this was affecting travel. So it's important to me to be a resource in my local community and as well in the travel industry, because there's a lot of information circulating out there. Is it safe to go here, there, or, you know, how do I get in the country? What do I need to do to get in that country? And you sort of want to be in the position to be an expert and to advise properly. So when things were really getting serious and we were starting to go on lockdown here in the US, I was probably at the news station 2 or 3 times a week for a month on end. And they like to call you super early in the morning. So there's a lot of early mornings. Even one time they caught me at my daughter's house and I had to go meet them at a gas station. You know, with the news media, you don't get a lot of notice. And I told her, I said, I've just got a t-shirt on. She's like, it's fine. I'm like, okay, here I come. But it's interesting because there's lots of misinformation circulating out there as well. And you've got consumers who don't know how to navigate these waters. So becoming that resource was important. I had heard another travel agent had created this fantastic YouTube channel, and he started answering the questions via YouTube, and his channel just exploded because he was answering all those questions instead of one-on-one. He just took to YouTube and got on camera and answered them. And it just exploded. So the best way you can become that resource, the best way you can take all of these streams of information and make it make sense to your clients and consumers, the better off you are.
Yeah, that is amazing and really cool. And it's with everything going on, there's so many different key aspects, but travel industry is one of the main ones that you can watch to see what's happening, you know, and so that is really, it's not shocking that they're like, oh, Margie, can we get you in and right now? And was there any social media content that you notice ever generated the most response or engagement?
So from the social media side, especially what's kind of trending now is people just want to know, where can they go? Even the calls I'm getting are where can we go? I had a call from a lady who wanted to go to Israel, and I promise you, even with the things I read, I wasn't sure. By the time it was all said and done, I wasn't sure. So I told her, I said, you know, let me just get back to you because I'm just not sure. This is a little conflicting, even what I'm seeing. And I'm a travel professional. I should be able to, you know, decipher this. And I just wasn't sure. One thing said this and something else said that. So it took a little bit of time to figure that out. But that's kind of what we're seeing right now is people asking, where can they go? That's more of what's trending than anything. Travel agents have really popped in there and done a phenomenal job of navigating all of this for consumers and their clients. And now it's just trying to get that motivated client to a destination they can't go to. And the the thing that makes it even more challenging is you can go today, next week, I don't know.
Yeah.
It makes it even more challenging. So yeah, it's tough waters to navigate. So I feel like every travel agent out there is like a living, breathing edition of how to make it through a pandemic. You've got a story to tell. So share that.
Yes. It's been insane. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, every week, it's even here at Travify when we talk to travel advisors all the time, and it'll be completely different one week to the next, how everyone's feeling, what's changed, and it is wild. But one thing that I want to talk about though, is the positive things, all the great things, because we know that there's been, a lot of really devastation, hard times, but there's also a lot of positive and success stories. And I really want to highlight those. The first one being Jenn. So you told us about October, which is amazing. But also you mentioned that you were able to maintain over 80% of your FIT bookings just by changing dates and destinations, which is really awesome. So what has success looked like for you and your business this year?
Well, I mean, as you mentioned, being able to convert and maintain, and I say conservatively 80% by moving dates and destinations, that was a huge success story, because I think like all travel advisors, when this all hit and was going on for longer than 2 weeks, we started going, okay, this could be really bad. Like, okay, certainly it'll be fine by summer. Certainly it'll be fine by September. Certainly it'll be fine by Christmas. To some clients you've rescheduled, 2 or 3 times. But fortunately we had very few outright FIT cancellations. And that was kind of a product of, hey, listen, you have insurance on this booking. Let's just move it so that you can maintain this insurance. That's just like one thing. And it was really in their best interest to do that. It represented no loss of money for them. And because the suppliers we work with, for the most part, were very good about working with us. So that was a huge success story. We even within our groups, we do have several agents who do like to do groups. We had 2 in particular that were scheduled for Europe. We were successfully able to convert those. I know this is crazy because it's not the same destination, to Mexico groups, because they just still wanted to travel. And it's a completely different experience, but we were able to work with our suppliers, get the budget about the same. They were like, hey, we can go somewhere, it's not our house. So, we're able to convert it that way, which was also, I feel like, a very big success story. And so things can be done. You just have to be able to let your clients know what the benefit is. And if you are confident in it, which as travel advisors, we should be, confident in what we are telling people. And of course, we're not going to try to sell them cheap whatever that's not really in their best interest. We're, really trying to make it for their good. But in a lot of cases, people were willing to maintain and stick with us. And so I think that was a huge success story. And sorry, my notes are on this screen because I'm, back and forth. So that was a huge save. And then as we mentioned, having really strong sales in the fall came as a huge surprise and a big, feeling of success. And also, I will say every single booking nowadays is adding that lovely insurance, and we still have suppliers with cancel for any reason. So that has, I think, contributed to the success, because people feel like, okay, I feel like I'm confident enough because I can get my money back, or at least the travel credit. So
yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah, the insurance is,
it's like 100% sale rate.
Yeah, yes. And I'm sure the insurance, travel insurance are getting very connected with many travel advisors right now. It's very important. And Jamie, you get to highlight and interview travel advisors and suppliers for Travel Weekly all the time. So I know that you have some success stories. What are some success stories that come in mind for 2020?
Yeah, I mean, for all the negative, there have been some really positive stories out there. I actually just wrote a story about Girling Travel in Florida. They have an office building that they own. They bought it right after the Great Recession as kind of an investment. And they rented out a space in the front of the building, but they decided in the course of the pandemic to turn it into an ice cream shop. So that's kind of a pandemic-proof business. I mean, who doesn't want ice cream these days? So I thought that was really cool. They're still, obviously servicing their clients. They still have their travel offices and business, but I thought that was really cool. And then there's another agent in Texas, Michael Arnold. He's an affiliate of Departure Lounge. and he is on track to do 5 million in sales in 2020. This is his second year selling travel. He had a $1 million month in, I think, October. It was incredible. I mean, my jaw hit the floor when I saw the email, like, hey, you might want to talk to this guy. But, you know, he caters to very much private aviation, private villas, that kind of thing. But I mean, talk about a success story. That's outstanding. And I actually had one come across my desk just this week. Jack Ezon at Embark Beyond in New York. He's made a number of pivots in the pandemic that have been really interesting. But just this week, he announced that, a whole new service where he and his agency will help their clients gain dual citizenship in European Union countries where they can claim ancestry. And he said he already had 100 people on his waiting list before he even launched the service. So, you know, I mean, for all the negatives, I think there are so many positives, but honestly, any travel agency that is still in business and serving their clients, I think is a positive story this year.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I would have to say that Michael, I think was his name, he has found the right job for himself. If this is year 2, he figured it out. That is awesome.
Amazing.
Yeah, that is so cool. And I want to hear all these success stories because they're just so interesting to hear. Margie, you get to work with, well, your own travel agency, but you also work with a lot of travel advisors through CCRA. Do you have any success stories to share?
Yes. So one girl actually did something I thought was pretty cool. She created her own food and wine excursions and tours. So she started working with local DMOs in her chosen destinations, and she has curated a group of food and wine tours of her own that she'll begin selling in 2021. There's another agent that did a similar thing, and she took her food and wine tours online. So virtual cooking and wine tasting classes with local tour guides. And she's doing them online and selling those. So she wasn't without income during the pandemic at all. Wow. She sells Italy and she started selling those online. So she wasn't without income. I thought that was brilliant. And I can tell you, I've joined in on a couple of different food and wine tours myself, virtual wine tastings. Another lady I know has created a t-shirt brand, and she is selling travel t-shirts in addition to her travel agency. I know a couple of ladies who are doing this. So they're still earning money and having amazing opportunities to grow beyond just selling travel. Pretty exciting.
That is really cool. And the virtual wine tasting and food, it's so smart because, you know, we don't really have events to go to anymore. So we're free on the weekend to look for something to do. So it's so smart. Right. Yeah, that's brilliant. And Ian, how about you? Do you have any success stories you've heard about?
Yeah, I mean, Margie just reminded me of the fact that we have so many of our advisors that have created these side hustles in the last little bit just to make some extra money. And sometimes it's related to travel. And I know some people that have created brand new e-commerce businesses on the side while they've been just taking a little bit of time off. But I think from a broad perspective at TravelOnly, and I'm sure this is the case for a lot of other advisors, they've taken the time, this downtime, to work on parts of their business that they may had some deficiencies. And for us, a lot of them was setting up their own websites and getting them up to date and learning how to do them properly. You know, we have a large subset of advisors that have been doing this for 20 plus years. And when they first started, they did not have their own website. We supply them with the website, but have they customized it? Have they added more information about who they are? Have they shown their specialization within it? And then one step further, a lot of our advisors have taken the time now to do some additional training on social media, because I think all of us would say that throughout this pandemic, where did everyone get their news from? It wasn't from an e-blast, and it probably wasn't from our websites. It was from social media. And so if our advisors weren't on social media giving out that information, as Margie said, you know, being the experts, then they were getting it from someone else. And it might be a competitor, but it might be an organization that's not telling the truth or doesn't really know what they're doing. And they're trying to sell something, to Jenn's point, that they really shouldn't be selling. And so we want them to be listening to us. And so you have to create your own voice on social media. You have to be comfortable on social media. And if you're not on social media, that means someone else is. And so I've seen a lot of our advisors taking the time and they are setting themselves up for future success right now. You know, they might not be selling, but, you know, in a year from now, they'll be just so much farther ahead in their business, and whether they're putting in new processes, but mostly I've seen a lot of work on the back end and on their digital front and on their social media.
Such a good point. I love that. I love that quote too, is if you're not on social media, someone else is. So
Yep.
so smart. Yeah. And and a good point too. Yeah. Social media, I mean, it's been such a big thing in the past, 10 years. It's grown so much, but even right now, this is a year where, huge. Yeah, there's constant news, everything. So yeah, great points. I love hearing all these stories of how the industry and advisors are just beating the odds with the craziness that gets thrown our way, and finding new hobbies and stuff too, which is really exciting, new side hustles. But now I want to move on to our final question. And since we're in December of 2020, it's fair to move on to 2021 now. We're very close. So I want to ask what your plans are and mindset is like for the coming year. So Margie, I'm going to start with you. What are your plans looking like for 2021 so far?
For me personally, revenge travel. I'm ready to get out there. I've been ready forever, and I'm not used to being home, but on a bigger scale. I am looking forward to seeing travel return. I'm looking forward to doing more writing and getting in front of more consumers and being that expert and trying to turn this into the positive and not focus on what happened in 2020. We all know what it was, and we're done with it. We're ready to move on. It's a new year coming. And I'm hopeful that since we have a vaccine out there, that we'll see more opportunities for us as Americans to get back out there, because so many of those doors are shut. But I'm focusing on just getting people excited again. I don't know that that's going to take a lot of work, because I think we're all we were ready to go months ago. But our focus is really on just, kind of getting everybody's business ready to go, especially on the CCRA side, getting our members up and ready to go. We're hosting webinars, trying to give them tips and things that they can do to prepare for the new year and how that looks like, even from a standpoint of doing some financial forecasting. And let's get on top of it right now before the new year hits. Some marketing ideas. And like I said, for me personally, is just getting out there and getting in front of consumers as much as possible and encouraging them to get back out there, not to be as fearful, but get back out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
And moving on the marketing side, Jen, I know you had some marketing plans for 2021. Can you share those with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we really want to kind of look into some of that targeted marketing, because, throughout this, we know which demographics of our clientele is wanting to travel. We know the ones that are reaching out to us. So I actually just put in about 4 hours last week transitioning our system over so that I can do more targeted marketing easily through our e-blast program and things like that, also into our Facebook marketing. Okay, how could we boost posts to the correct clientele that follow us, and how do we want to do that? So looking into the markets that we have seen booking. So like I said, those younger couples, even up to I consider I'm almost 40, but I consider myself one of those young couples. Then the people, with the families, not the super small kids, because we haven't been getting as many of those traveling, but that demographic for sure, pushing it out there. And with the vaccine, feeling like we can incorporate that as well a little bit, so that people can feel more safe, more secure, really communicating about that. So I think that's the biggest focus. And then also who we want to be in the industry. We've encouraged our advisors, hey, this is the time to, if you need to rebrand, if you need to remarket yourself, if you need to expand your focus, narrow your focus, this is the time to do that. So sort of targeting what exactly each individual agent wants to be. That's the other thing that we're really looking closely at, because it's kind of been a reset in a way. It's everybody's had that chance to kind of be introspective, and now we get to hopefully in 2021 go out and be bold and travel.
I know, travel. Well, and it's always at the beginning of a new year is always exciting. Like, what am I going to do this year? And so now at everyone's mind's like, well, I'm going to travel. I have to go somewhere. So no. And is there anyone else too, Jamie or Ian, I want to make sure that I get to you both as well. Anything that we haven't covered in 2021 that you have plans on or expecting? I know we don't have a crystal ball, but somewhat expecting maybe.
Well, I mean, I am somewhat expecting to be able to start writing those stories about recovery.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm really hopeful for. I mean, I hope that, it's just been such a negative year that I hope next year we can really turn the corner and start focusing on the positives, because I think there's going to be a lot more positive to focus on in 2021.
Yeah. And I think for us, similar to everyone else, we're definitely looking forward to traveling again. We want to get our advisors to travel because we need to show our customers and our consumers that we understand the situation. We feel safe to travel, so we want to lead by example. That's for sure. And then at TravelOnly, something that we are looking for the next 12 months is seeing what we can do to help the industry. So we know that a lot of our colleagues have closed down their storefronts, and we know some of them don't want to go back into the industry, but we also want to say, look, if you are looking and you are looking for a home-based agency, there's quite a few here in Canada, and we're all trying to work together to say, look, you don't have to close down if you don't want to. Work with us and we'll try and make it work for you so you don't have to lose your clients, because that's a hard thing for anyone to go through. You build a business for so long, and 1 year is going to impact you. So I hope that we see some really positive stories. I know Jamie was saying that he was expecting that there was going to be a lot more doom and gloom, and that it's not as bad. And I hope that will continue on for the rest of the next 6 months. It's really going to depend for us in Canada. Honestly, it will depend on when this quarantine can end. If this quarantine can end in the next 30 days, 60 days, hopefully we'll be okay. If it goes longer, it's going to be really difficult for us. So our fingers are crossed, and we're just booking into 2021. And I cannot wait to get out of snowy Toronto.
Yes. Is it really snowy there right now?
No, I'm just kidding. It's actually like 1 degree here, but it will be snowy. It will be snowy soon. So
1 degree Fahrenheit or Celsius?
No, Celsius. So
okay.
above 30, above 30 for you guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, no. Yeah, that sounds awful. Well, and that is the thing too.
We had snow last week, but we're okay now. So.
Yeah.
I wanted to throw in here too. One other thing I'm kind of really looking forward to is cruising to start back up. I just want the cruise lines to figure it out. So
yeah,
I'm really looking forward. I kind of feel like that they're a huge indication of when this is all turning around. So I want the cruises back on the water. I want the ships all back out there.
Same.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
What are the first ones that are supposed, because some of them are or is the earliest that most of them are planning to sail in the fall of 2021? I just keep hearing different things. So 100.
They postponed through February. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Margie.
No, you go ahead. I was going to say the same thing. It's like through February for some. I heard there's maybe a few that are through March, and I hear after that there's selective cruises that are canceled until a longer period of time. There's a tiny bit, I think Royal is doing one, Quantum of the Seas might be cruising in Singapore right now. I think they've just done the first one or getting ready to do the first one. But it's all still just a little bit here and there, but I'm just anxious. I'm in Florida. We're a big cruise port, as you know. Yeah. So we kind of, come on. We're kind of ready. It's kind of, it's one of the things that Floridians enjoy, as well as everybody coming to Florida. So we're ready. We're just ready for them to figure it out. And I know there's lots of risks and all that, but I have complete faith in the cruise lines to figure this out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's a good point to make, though, that watch the cruise lines and see what, they're doing now. Thanks for that tip. Now I'm just going to always watch. So Jamie, I'm just going to stay on Travel Weekly and just keep watching. New articles roll in.
Please do.
Yeah. No, this has been so much fun. It looks like we're coming up right on the hour. I mean, we could sit here and chat forever. And there's so much to talk about. And I was looking at all the comments. It's really, everyone is on the same boat. I'm ready to travel. Cruise, Catherine said. So yeah, everybody completely agrees. And I just want to thank our panelists here today again so much. And, I'm sure that this is our final webinar of 2020. Hopefully we're singing a completely different tune in 2021, getting ready for, all that stuff. We'll start talking about, marketing for quotes and proposals and all that, which is happening right now, actually a lot, which is really exciting. We're seeing a lot of that at Travify, a lot of proposals and quotes being made, which is really exciting. But again, thank you so much, everyone. I know this year's been crazy. We're a community. We're in this together. Feel free to reach out. We're always here, academy at Travify.com. But then also just a quick reminder that this is going to be converted into a podcast episode. So make sure to go subscribe to The Lounge by Travify Academy on your favorite podcast streaming platform, and you'll see this. And so that's all we had for today. This was a really great time. I just want to thank you all again so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Yeah, thanks. We'll see you all later, and have happy holidays, everyone, as well. And we'll see you in 2021.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
See ya.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.